Checkmate. Oh, all right. Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I was just demolishing my opponent here in the game of chess. I'm like the best player in the world. No, I'm playing. I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay. I think I could get down a little bit. Anyways, so we have the fourth round of the Russian Chess Championship Superfinal. And so the game I have for you guys here is Mikhail Antipov versus Nepomniachtchi. And as always, like I say, I have the answer to the previous chess puzzle at the end of the video. And I'll be giving you a brand new one for all those diehard, gotta have it chess fans. I got you at the end. But if you guys are ready, let's take a look and see what we have for this game here. So it's a pretty good one. I like it. All right, so we have e4. We got c5, so we have the Sicilian on the board. Knight to f3, so we have d6. D4, c takes d4, knight takes d4. Knight to f6, knight to c3, and we have a6. So for all of you out there who are like, chess aficionados that, know these like very famous openings, this is the Sicilian Najdorf. Now, it's named after Mikhail Najdorf, originally Polish and then Argentinian grandmaster. Once upon a time, very famous chess player. So many people know, and that gives me a good idea. I'm going to have Mikhail Najdorf as my next chess legend. As you guys can see right here, I have Boris Spassky, and it's kind of fitting because I'm covering the Russian championship super final. And we know that Boris Spassky was a pretty good Russian player. He might have been a world champion at some point, I think. Yeah. 1969 and 1972. Anyway, A6 is a very important move in these situations because you don't want to see like a knight D to B5 or a knight C to B5 or a bishop to B5. So if we just take a look at so what we do have in this actual game is we have A3 and then we have E5. So if you just go back and take a look at what would happen if you don't play A6, we would have knight to C3. And then if you wanted to try to go E5 directly or even E6, so E5 comes, you'd see bishop to B5 check. You would see knight B to D7, and you would see knight come into F5. And as you can see, there's some weaknesses. This is one of the this square here, this pawn, on D6 for black is one of the weakest points in black's camp. So this is always a point that you usually try to hit. Sometimes you'll castle queen side and move the queen up, and you'll having a battery on the D6 pawn. And so you kind of have a issue here with your bishop. You can't really develop it here because you'll have knight to G7 with check, and so you just kind of have a lot of problems. And then the other variation that you would have would be if the bishop blocks on D7. And so the bishop would take on D7 with check. The queen would take, and then you'd have knight D to E2. And then you would be having to play H6 to make sure you defend against bishop coming here. Because once you're able to remove this knight, this bishop has a really, really hard time trying to defend these light squares. So you kind of have a lot of issues. You have knight coming here and coming up like that and stuff like that. So that is why Mikhail Najdorf was one of the champions of this A6 move. And that is what that does. And so we have A3. By Antipov, and so we have E5 coming, but like I said, we don't have to worry about any of the pieces coming to B5. So we have knight back to F3. We have H6, making sure we don't have any pins going on. And so we have bishop to C4, bishop to E6, bishop back to B3. Not worrying about the trade here and doubling your pawns here. And so we have knight to C6. We have castles, and actually castles, as crazy as it sounds, that is the novelty of the game. It's a brand new position. It seems like you would have seen something like this at some point in the past, in the history of playing the game. But, it is a brand new position as of the moves. So that's where we're at. So we have rook to C8 and we have H3. Now, to take an assessment of the position here, we have a lot of prophylactic play by white and by black. And for some of you guys that aren't familiar with the word prophylactic, there's a concept in chess called prophylactics. And so basically what you're doing is you're making moves that prevent your opponent from kind of bettering their position. So usually if we're looking at the prophylactic moves in this position here, we see these pawns here moved. And so basically what they're doing is they're preventing the knights or the bishops from, plopping on those squares, because we don't want any pins. We don't want any issues and stuff like that, right? So as far as black is concerned, a6 makes a lot of sense and h6 actually makes a lot of sense. But the difference is white is playing prophylactically, but there isn't really anything that they're preventing. So, in this particular situation, black is doing considerably better than white is. And so this a3 move, it almost wasted a little bit of time just simply because there wasn't really anything that was trying to come on b4 in the first place. And then also this h3 move, if the bishop wanted to pin this knight, let's do this. If the bishop wanted to pin this knight down on g4, it would have done it instead of going to bishop to e6. So, it's a3 and h3, they did waste a little bit of time. So they wasted some precious tempo for white. And so white is in, a slightly worse position as we sit on the board here. So we have bishop to e7. So knight coming down to h2. So, usually they have the saying in chess, a knight on the rim is grim. And so it's actually kind of a little grim in this particular situation because it was already sitting pretty nice on f3. And so it didn't really need to be moved again. So we have castles here for black. So we have knight to g4, knight takes g4, pawn takes g4, and we have bishop to g5. So as you can see, white has just voluntarily, kind of damaged their pawn structure a little bit, which, isn't the end of the world. But, you're giving black a very, very heavy advantage in this particular situation. So it's actually kind of starting to go downhill a little bit for Antipov here. And so we have knight to d5. And so we have knight to d4. And so we have c3. And so we have bishop takes c1, rook takes c1. You definitely don't want to take up the queen, of course, because you're going to be dropping the bishop. So don't do that. All right, so we have knight takes b3, queen takes b3, and we have bishop takes g4. It's a temporary pawn capture because we do have queen takes b7, rook to b8. We have queen takes a6, and then we have rook takes b2. And as you guys can see in this position, because of kind of the tempo, the tempi, the one or two tempi that white kind of wasted there earlier in the game, we kind of have a damaged pawn structure here. We have the nice pawn structure here with these pawns, but then we have isolated pawns here. And so, when you're looking at it from pawn structure point of view, the black pawn structure is, considerably more healthy than the white one is. So we have rook to b1. And so we have bishop to e2. All right. And so we have queen to c6, sidestepping that, that skewer that we have with the bishop on the rook and the queen. And so we have rook to d2. Now, some of you guys might have been looking, so if you back up here, some of you guys might have been looking and saying, wait a minute, the whole point of moving this here was to take this here. Well, unfortunately, if you go into that variation, it's actually going to be dropping a piece. So if you look at it, bishop takes f1, rook would take b2, and the only saving move that you can probably see in the position would be moving bishop back to d3, which seems like it's good. But you would have knight to b4, and now the bishop is trapped. So you kind of have to be careful when you're extending your pieces into your enemy's position that you don't get them, you don't get your hand, caught in the cookie jar, as they say. So going back to rook to d2, we have rook f to e1 being able to save that piece here. So we have queen to g5. So rook takes e2, rook takes e2. We have queen takes d6, and so we have rook to e8. So queen to d7. Just trying to attack that undefended rook there on e8. And so we have rook to e6. And we have g3. So queen comes to h5. And we have king to g2. And like I said before, this position is getting very, very dire for black. And if I back it up here just a touch to where queen h5 was like, before we have king to g2, if you want to go ahead and pause the video real quick and see what Antipov actually missed. Now his position is bad. But this was definitely a very, very strong continuation had he found it. If you want to go ahead and stop the video and see if you can see what that actual move was, go ahead real quick. All right, cool. Welcome back. We missed you. All right, so So basically in this position, you know, black is starting to get like in a really kind of bad net here, right? So a nice counterattack that Antipov would have actually been able to go into would be knight to e7 check. Now, if you did come up with queen to d8 check first, then you would actually still kind of be right, because it doesn't really matter the move order you wanted to go into with that, because they're both checks. So it would end up transposing and be the same thing. So knight to e7 would check, king would come down to h7, and then queen to d8. It would be the same thing if you went queen to d8 check, king to h7, and knight to e7, setting up this you know, this nice little checkmate if the queen can get to g8. So it's going to force the rook to capture, and then the queen would capture. And as you can see, the situation is a lot better for white, and they're actually up a pawn. They're still not doing as good, but they are up a pawn. You know, this pawn is going to get captured, so it's going to be pretty even. But you know, if you can ever start getting these pawns rolling, you're going to be looking pretty good. So, like I said, the king did come to g2, and so we have king to h7, just sidestepping any of that stuff there. And so we have queen to d8 now. But like I said, if we go back to the beginning, we think about that 1 or 2 tempi that white you know, kind of wasted early on. It would be helping them tremendously right now if they had a move or two in the pocket. And so queen comes to g4. We have rook to b4, and then we have rook to g6. And it's in this position that Antipov actually resigned. So Jan Nepomniachtchi did win this game. And, you know, kind of the issue that you're facing is this rook is going to take this pawn, and you are going to have this queen and this rook crashing through your position. And you're going to be getting into a mating type of net. So if white was to play something passive, let's say like that, it really kind of doesn't matter what white plays. You know, you would be taking here, and then after here, you'd be taking here. And then as you can see, you know, there's not really a lot of defense that white has in this position. And so, I mean, it's like you can move here, and, you know, the queen is going to be, you know, corralling the king up. And, you know, that would be, you know, not that. That would be checkmate. So there's just multiple different ways that checkmate can occur in this particular situation. I mean, after that rook sacrifice. So, you know, because of that, like I said, Antipov actually resigned. And so if we get into these chess puzzles that I have for you guys. Now, this was the puzzle I gave you guys last time. This was actually pretty difficult. It's funny because when I was doing it, I dropped back rank mate when I was calculating in my head. And I did it in my head. And so if you guys found knight to c5, that's gangster, because you realize that the knight is pinned. So the only way that black can take back is with the pawn. And in this particular situation, before I go into the thing, this is actually what I had saw. I saw rook takes d7, rook takes d7, and then I saw this pin on the queen. But unfortunately, after... Oh, maybe it wasn't back rank. But just, you're down a piece. Okay. Anyway, I got the answer wrong. So that was that. But taking it back to what it was d takes c5, and then bishop to f4, deflecting the queen away from the rook. And so after bishop to d6, we see bishop takes d6, rook to b6, and we see queen to d7. And so you know, the king would take, and then you take back, and you'd have two rooks to you know, a rook and stuff. So yeah, that was that one. And then this next one here, it is also a pinning. It's an intermediate pinning. And so this is the one here. If you guys want to put it in your own board and see what's up. I appreciate you guys coming by. Subscribe and like, and let me know if there's other games you want me to cover, and I'll see y'all next time.